All right, let's just dive right in and demystify exactly how AI automations are actually built from the ground up without writing a single line of code. We hear this term AI automation thrown around constantly in business today, right? And for a lot of people, it honestly sounds like an impenetrable black box of complex coding and engineering. But I'm here to tell you that once you look inside that box, it is incredibly logical. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the exact tools, languages, and frameworks that let you build digital systems that essentially run completely on autopilot. I mean, just imagine offloading your most repetitive, low-value tasks to a system that never gets tired. Think about your own daily workflow for a second. The manual data entry, the endless email sorting, copy-pasting client info from a web form into a spreadsheet. These tasks are just notoriously time-consuming, and quite frankly, they don't add much value to your unique human skill set. Automating them is really the key to escaping that endless cycle.
And this is the magic of it. A well-built automation works 24/7. It never takes a holiday, and it definitely doesn't need emotional support when the workload gets heavy. When we humans do the exact same task over and over again, we get tired, and our quality of output inevitably drops. But a software automation running quietly in the background, it is completely consistent. It literally gives you the superpower to scale your output without scaling your resources.
To unpack this black box, here's a quick look at our agenda today. The power of automation, starting the engine, APIs and webhooks, JSON language, and finally, smart agents and error handling.
Okay, Section 1, the power of automation, and how we can do way more with less. At its core, beneath all the intimidating software platforms, whether you're using N8N, Make.com, Zapier, whatever, you're really just building simple if this, then that logical rules for your data to follow. If condition X is met, send the data down path A. If condition Y is met, send it down path B. That's the whole shebang. Everything is built on this exact foundational logic. Once you shift your mindset to view your daily tasks as just a series of logical steps, the entire digital world completely opens up to you.
Moving to Section 2, triggers. This is all about starting the engine and waking the system up.
So, triggers are basically the engines of your workflow. A system just sits there doing absolutely nothing until a trigger fires. You might use a manual execution when you're just clicking a button to test things out. Or you might use a schedule, often called a cron job in the tech world, to tell the system, hey, run every day at midnight to generate my content report. You could also rely on an on-app event like when a new row magically appears in Google Sheets. Or, very commonly, a form submission, where a new lead fills out a type form on your website and boom, that instantly kicks off your entire onboarding process.
All right, Section 3, APIs and webhooks explained. This is how we connect the software together. So once a trigger actually fires, how does an app like a form talk to a database like Google Sheets? Well, that brings us to the absolutely most important skill in automation, the API. This is what fundamentally allows completely independent software platforms to speak to one another. You see, the modern internet is really just thousands of different software islands. An API is the bridge. It's a set of rules that lets your automation securely request info from or send info to a totally different app, like asking a weather app for the temperature in London or telling Gmail to fire off an email.
I love this analogy. Think of an API as a waiter in a restaurant. You are the customer, representing the external software. You look at the menu, which is the API documentation, and you place your specific order. The waiter, our API, takes that request straight to the chef in the kitchen, which is the server of the software you're trying to reach. The kitchen preps it, and the waiter delivers the exact resulting dish right back to your table. Simple, right?
Now, while APIs are the waiters actively going back and forth, webhooks are your instant notification. Imagine a webhook as a digital doorbell ringing instantly to tell the restaurant a new customer just walked in, so the whole process can begin immediately. Instead of you having to constantly poke the software going, did anything new happen? Hey, did anything new happen? A webhook just waits, listens, and instantly receives the data the very second an event occurs, like when that type form is submitted.
If we follow our data on a little hero's journey, the entire workflow really starts to make visual sense. First, step 1, the webhook doorbell sounds the alarm because a client filled out a form. Next, step 2, your automation catches that data and formats it, basically prepping the order. Finally, step 3, the API waiter takes that perfectly prepped data and executes the delivery, dropping the client's information flawlessly into a new row in your Google spreadsheet. Section 4, JSON, the language of computers. Let's translate this data. So what exact language are our waiter and chef using to communicate behind the scenes? Well, look at how simple JavaScript object notation, or JSON for short, actually is. It's literally just English formatted perfectly for a computer to read. People get so terrified of code, but look at this comparison. Human English is on the left, computer English is on the right. In JSON, text is just wrapped in quotes as a string, numbers sit on their own, and true or false statuses are called booleans. It is highly structured, sure, but it is entirely readable for us humans.
And JSON relies entirely on identifying a key, like a name, and pairing it with a value. That's the fuel that runs your entire automation. Think of it exactly like a label on a manila folder. The key might be email, and the value inside is john@example.com. Whether you're pulling data out of a webhook or pushing data through an API into your CRM, you are always just passing around these structured little key value pairs.
Now, once we have our JSON data, we use logic nodes to route it. Think of it like a traffic cop. An if node is super simple. It checks a value and splits traffic left for true, right for false. But a switch node gives you incredible flexibility, letting you categorize data into multiple different paths. So if your AI reads an incoming email and flags it as a sales inquiry, the switch node routes it directly to your sales team's Slack channel. If it's a support ticket, it goes to Zendesk.
Which brings us to Section 5, Smart Agents and Error Handling, putting some guardrails on the AI.
And this is the final, completely crucial piece of our restaurant analogy, the manager stepping in when an order goes wrong. Look, what actually happens when the AI breaks? Because sometimes servers do go down, and large language models randomly glitch out. We absolutely have to prepare safety nets. It's really easy to build an automation that works perfectly in a vacuum. But what happens in the real world when OpenAI's servers crash, or an API key expires, or a web server just times out? Without error handling, your whole system just grinds to a halt.
But by setting up simple rules to, say, retry a failed connection or swap in a backup AI agent, you make sure your automated system is totally robust and hands-off. You can tell your workflow to retry on fail, wait 3 seconds and try the waiter again. If it's a non-critical step, you can just tell it to continue on fail. You can even use a split error route so that if a system fully crashes, you instantly get an email alert with a link right to the error. And if you're using AI agents, you can assign a fallback LLM. So if your primary AI model goes down, a backup bench player AI seamlessly tags in to finish the job.
Honestly, once you master these fundamental building blocks, you gain unprecedented leverage to scale your time and output. By understanding triggers, visualizing APIs as waiters, getting comfortable with JSON data, and building strict error handling, you literally go from being an employee working in the system to the architect managing the system from above. You can legitimately operate the output of a much larger team, entirely on your own. It's a real game changer.
So, I want you to look at your own daily workflow. Find that bottleneck and start building your first engine today. Is there a weekly report you manually copy and paste? A lead form that you painstakingly type into a CRM? Choose one specific, annoying, repetitive task, apply this logic, and let the machines handle the whole shebang. Once you flip that switch and watch the tech literally do your work for you while you sleep, your perception of what's possible is going to completely change. So what repetitive task will you automate today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in